Hello viewers, this is SM Sharman Jahan and you're welcome to Year Recap 2025. 2025 will be remembered as one of the most consequential and polarizing years in Bangladesh's political history. It was the year when the post-Hasina transition moved from promises of accountability to concrete and controversial actions. International arrest warrants, the banning of the country's oldest ruling party, and a historic verdict sentencing a former prime minister to death in absentia. This is how those events unfolded and why they matter. On April 13th, Bangladesh's Anti-Corruption Commission issued an arrest warrant that sent shockwaves far beyond Dhaka, this time reaching Westminster. The warrant named 𝗞𝗲𝘆𝘄cie𝗿𝗱𝘀, a British MP, former Labour minister and the niece of deposed Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. The ACC accused Siddique of illegally receiving land in Dhaka as part of a wider probe into alleged corruption during Hasina's 15-year rule. More than 50 others were named alongside her. The ACC claims the Hasina family embezzled up to £3.9 billion from major infrastructure projects. Central to the allegations is a 2013 nuclear power plant deal with Russia, which political opponent Bobby Hajjaj claims was deliberately overinflated, with Siddique allegedly playing a brokering role. Siddique's lawyers categorically denied all charges, calling them completely false and politically motivated. They said no evidence had been presented and that Siddique had not even been informed of any hearing in Dhaka. They stressed she has never owned land in Bangladesh nor influenced land allocations. The case quickly became diplomatically sensitive. The UK classifies Bangladesh as a 2B extradition country, meaning any extradition would require clear evidence and approval from both ministers and judges. Siddique had earlier referred herself to the UK Prime Minister's ethics advisor, who found no evidence of impropriety, though he noted her failure to anticipate the reputational risks of her family ties. Bangladesh's ACC rejected claims of political targeting, insisting its investigation was evidence-based and urging Siddique to appear before the courts in Dhaka. The episode underscored a central theme of 2025, how far the new authorities were willing to pursue accountability and how contested those efforts would be, both at home and abroad. Just weeks later, on May 10th, the interim government made its most dramatic political move yet. Through an executive order, it banned all activities of the Awami League, the party Sheikh Hasina led for decades, from contesting the next two election cycles. The decision was taken by the interim cabinet led by Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus and justified under the Anti-Terrorism Act. Law Affairs advisor Asif Nazrul said the ban would remain until the trial of the party and its leadership over the killing of protesters was completed under the International Crimes Tribunals Act. This marked an unprecedented step. The Awami League was not just sidelined electorally, the law was amended to allow political parties to be tried as collective entities for crimes committed while in power. That opened the door for the party itself to stand trial for alleged killings during the 2024 uprising. The decision came amid sustained street protests in Dhaka led by students and backed by newly formed political platforms. The Awami League student wing, Bangladesh Chhatra League, had already been banned months earlier after being labeled a terrorist organization for its role in attacks on protesters. The background to the ban was grim. According to a UN human rights report, up to 1,400 people may have been killed during the 3 weeks of protests in mid-2024, when Hasina's government cracked down on student-led demonstrations. Supporters of the ban hailed it as long overdue justice. Critics warned it would deepen political divisions and undermine national reconciliation. The Awami League dismissed the move outright, calling the interim government illegal and declaring all its decisions illegitimate. By May, it was clear. Bangladesh was not just transitioning away from Hasina, it was attempting to dismantle the political system she had dominated. That reckoning reached its climax on November 17th. Bangladesh's International Crimes Tribunal sentenced Sheikh Hasina to death in absentia after convicting her of crimes against humanity linked to the July 2024 massacre of protesters. It was the most dramatic verdict in the country's history and a defining moment of the post-Hasina era. The tribunal found Hasina guilty of orchestrating mass killings, authorizing lethal force from the air and ground, murdering specific individuals, destroying bodies to conceal evidence, and coordinating violent crackdowns across the country. 2 charges resulted in the death penalty, another led to imprisonment until natural death. Former Home Minister Asaduzzaman Khan was also sentenced to death, while former Police Chief Chaudhry Abdullah Al Mamun received a reduced sentence after cooperating with prosecutors. The court ordered the confiscation of Hasina's property and directed the government to compensate families of those killed and wounded during the uprising. Hasina, who has been living in exile in India since August 2024, rejected the verdict as politically motivated, calling the tribunal biased and illegitimate. She said she was willing to face a proper tribunal where evidence could be tested fairly. The irony was not lost on observers. The ICT had originally been set up by Hasina herself in 2010 to try war crimes from 1971. Over the years, it had been accused by her opponents and rights groups of politicization. Now, it had turned against its founder. The verdict raised immediate questions. Would India extradite Hasina? Legally, the 2013 extradition treaty allows refusal for political offenses, and analysts widely believe New Delhi will not hand her over, at least under the current circumstances. Human rights groups also raised alarms. Human Rights Watch questioned the fairness of the trial, citing concerns over in absentia proceedings, the death penalty, and due process. Analysts warned against allowing legitimate demands for justice to slide into politicized retribution. Still, for many Bangladeshis, especially the youth who led the uprising, the verdict carried deep symbolic weight. It signaled that even the most powerful leaders could be held accountable and that the era of untouchable political dynasties might be ending. 2025 closed, Bangladesh stood at a crossroads. The Awami League was banned, its leaders sentenced to death, and millions of expatriate Bangladeshis had been granted postal voting rights for the first time. Yet, political volatility loomed large, with elections delayed until at least 2026 and fears of unrest still present.